As an architect, I always sketch whenever we travel, and those sketches are usually the base for my paintings. So every 4 years, it seems, I have an exhibition at the Ferry Building Gallery in West Vancouver, which amazingly is very successful. But again, all I'm interested in is to sell enough so that my pottery and other painting habits are sort of roughly free, and that's all I wanted to do. And well, I'm getting on by now. I'm 86 actually, and so finally I decided that I've done enough of the pottery, which is a very complicated and time-consuming process, and I still felt that I probably can do better paintings than I'd had done before. So then the last 2 years I started to concentrate seriously on painting. Well, with my wife, who is Danish, and I met her in Denmark, where I stayed actually for 5 years altogether. We travel a lot, and we were fortunate. We have seen most of the world, and so we have good memories. Well, all art actually is based on the same understanding, and architecture is a very complicated one. It combines both technical thing, business, responsibility, and a little bit, if you can sneak it in, art. And quite often there you learn that you actually create it in your head. Quite often when I drove into Vancouver through the bridge and there was a traffic jam, it didn't bother me. I could turn things around and I could have ideas. And the other thing, any idea that you didn't quite resolve, I found quite often that in sleeping and in the dream, ideas came. And when you woke up and you tried it, sometimes you realized instantly that it doesn't work. But other times you said, actually, this is the solution I was looking for. Now in pottery it's the same. I can sketch very easily, so I constantly doodle. And the same with paintings. These ideas move around a lot, and I keep on changing them. And now that, because I don't have to sell, I repaint things many times. Sometimes I pick out something I painted 20 years ago. I said, well, it's wrong, and I change it. Pottery you can't change. But the beauty of it is that some part of the process is out of your hand. It's when you open the kiln and you expect some things. Some things are much worse and you're ready to break it. They might be perfectly good, but it's not what you wanted. And others are just absolutely beautiful and you can't repeat it. Well, I never expected that I have too much talent, but I also remember this saying that 1% talent and 99% work does it. And I always was very willing to offer my time and work hard. And it applies to all the arts and practically everything in life. And unfortunately, I think architecture only had a relatively narrow window all across the world that I call modern architecture. Of course, it started somewhere in the Bauhaus in Germany, and it had after that a run which became called the international style. It had a run about 40 years at the most. And after that, people started to get unhappy about it or tired of it. And then all kind of crazy things happened. There were some bypasses that we would rather forget. One was called the postmodern. Awful buildings happened. And now there is a little bit of a cut back to the 50s in architecture. I see things, except in the 50s, we did it because it was necessary. We were careful, there was not that much money. Now some of the things that are trying to do the buildings somewhat similar to the 50s are using silly things on it, additional things. Then, of course, came all the glass. And unfortunately, that became in Vancouver the cheapest and simplest way of building. So, and I wasn't too involved with many of these high rises. I did a couple, but not too many. But the green glass high rises don't have much of a soul. But Vancouver as a city, fortunately, still is most likely one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Good town planning helped, and the location, of course, is fantastic. Well, of course, Ericsson's buildings did fit in Vancouver, and he has many beautiful buildings here. Gary and the other guys, they create huge sculptures, and as sculptures they are beautiful, incredibly expensive, and quite often when you go inside they don't know what to do with the space. I mean, you have a nice little Cezanne, which is 2 foot by 3 feet, and you put it in a space that is huge, a cathedral fits inside, they fight each other. So it's a great building on the outside, and if somebody can afford it, it's good, but somehow it's not mixed together with how it's used. Oh yes, it's a very frustrating and complicated profession, and of course most of us think about it as art, but how much you can get through is difficult. The most of the problem is usually money, that there is not enough for it, or you have a client that doesn't want that, wants a useful building, and you have to be careful. Then, of course, you always have to fight the bylaws, which are not necessarily helpful for you to create something that you really want. But this is part of the business, and there are a few of these art forms that are just as complicated. I always joke about that opera is somewhat similar. There you combine theater, singing, and acting, and usually the best singer is not the best actor, and usually they sing it in Italian, so you don't understand it. And if you actually understood it, then you wish you didn't. Okay.